Hello and welcome to the second part of this English lesson in change of voice. In the previous part, we looked at the difference between active and passive voice. Please watch that video if you haven't already and then come back to this one where we're going to discuss the change from active into passive. Okay, just a quick recap. Active voice, we said that the sentence is of the form subject, verb, object, where more importance is given to the subject and less to the object. And we said the passive voices of the form object, verb, subject, more importance is given to the object rather than the subject, and in certain cases the subject may not even be mentioned when it's not known, okay, or when it's not important. The subject may not even be mentioned. In the passive sentence you may sometimes have the word by. Now, before we start the change from active to passive, it is very important that you know how to identify an active sentence and a passive sentence, because in the exam nobody is going to tell you, okay, hello, this is an active sentence, you got to change it into passive, or vice versa. You have to, the first part is identifying what voice the sentence is in, and then you change it into the other one. Okay, so how do you identify? The giveaway for passive is by. Okay, the giveaway for passive is by. So if you see by, it is straight away in the passive voice. Now sometimes passive sentences do not have the word by in them. For example, my watch has been found. In this sentence, is the word by there? No, there's no by. Does that mean it's in the active voice? No. Okay, because you can see here that the verb is has been found, and what has been found, what is receiving the action of finding? The watch, right? So it's the object has come before the verb, so it's still in the passive voice. Okay, this is the case of subject not known or subject not important. Who has found it is not important, or we don't know who's found it. Okay, so in this case this is also a passive sentence. So that doesn't mean all passive sentences have by. Okay, when it has by, it is a passive sentence, but all passive sentences don't necessarily have the word by. Okay, so stick to the rule of subject verb object active and object verb subject for passive. Okay, check, this is the more foolproof way of checking whether the sentence is active or passive. Okay, let's begin with the first example of active to passive. The first step you need to do is check the transformation that you're doing, okay, which I mentioned. Check the transformation that you're doing. Check whether it's from active to passive or passive to active. That is the first and most important step. Okay, so the first example, the invigilators are supervising the candidates. You need to check. Okay, so it's are supervising is the verb. What has come before the verb? Invigilators. The invigilators are doing the supervising. They are responsible for the action. So it is the subject before the verb. Therefore, it is active, and you are changing into passive. Okay, now the second step you need to do is split the sentence into subject, verb, and object. So in the dark brown you see the subject, light brown is the verb, and in dark blue is the object. Okay, now you start with your transformation. You interchange the subject and the object. That is, the subject is first and the object is last. Change, put the object first, okay, and the subject last. That's the easy part. Now you need to sort out the verb. Okay, now you have the active verb, that is are supervising. From this active verb you need to pull out two things. Okay, you need to pull out the tense of this verb, and you need to pull out the verb itself. So the tense, are, and then you have the ing. Are tells you it is present, ing tells you it is continuous, so it is the present continuous tense. Okay, and you need to pull out the verb. The verb is to supervise. That's pretty easy. Okay, so you need to get these two things from the active sentence. Okay, the tense is present continuous, the verb is to supervise. Once you're done with that, you need to make the new verb of the passive sentence. So to do that, you need to insert to be in the active tense. So you pulled out this tense, right? You got this tense, present continuous. You need to put to be. Okay, you need to put the verb to be in that tense. So to be in the present continuous, are being, right? And then you need to put, you took out the verb, right? You got the verb to supervise. From this verb, you need to find the participle. The participle of supervise is supervised. The last thing you need to do is just add the word by before the subject. The candidates are being supervised by the invigilators. Okay. You need to be careful about the verb. That is the most important part, which makes or breaks your transformation. Let's look at another example. His words conveyed a depth of meaning. Again, check. Conveyed is the verb. What is doing the action? What is conveying his words? So that's the subject is before the verb. This is an active sentence. You're changing it into passive. This is the first step that you need to do always. Okay. So his words conveyed a depth of meaning. What is being conveyed? A depth of meaning. That becomes your object. Subject, verb, object is the active voice. Okay. So the first step, interchange subject and object. A depth of meaning would come to the front. His words go to the end. And in between you need to put the verb. So this is the object. This is the subject. Okay. From the active verb, conveyed, you need to pull out two things. The verb and the tense. The tense ed tells you it is the simple past tense and the verb is to convey. Okay, you've got these two things. Go to the next step, that is creating the passive verb. You need to put to be in this. You found out this tense, right? Put to be in this tense was, and put the participle of the verb to convey, conveyed. Okay, and before the subject you need to put the word by. A depth of meaning was conveyed by his words. Now, there are certain cases which are a little special. You need to follow the old rules, yes, but you also need to follow some little additional ones. Okay, so let's quickly look at these examples. We play video games. Now, in all these, first step is check that it's active and then you do the transformation. Okay, so play is the verb. Who is doing the playing? We. Subject, verb, object is active. Okay, so the first step is put the object at the start and put the subject at the end. Then you need to change the verb, right? So from play you need to find the tense and you need to find the verb. The tense is very easy, simple present tense. Okay, and then you need to find the verb. The verb is to play. So you need to put to be in this tense. Video games are. Okay, and then you need to put the participle of this verb. The participle of to play is played, and you need to put by before the subject. Now, video games are played by we. We followed all the rules, but we still got a little funny sentence. Video games are played by we. What's wrong with this sentence? This we doesn't sound right. And why is that? Because you have something called the subject pronouns and you have something called the object pronouns. Okay, so subject pronouns are I, you, he, she, okay, we, you, and they. When they go, so these are the pronouns which come before the verb. Okay, and when they go after the verb, they will change. Comes me, you, him, her, us, you, and them. Okay, so whenever these pronouns are used before the verb, they are used in this form, but when they go after the verb, they are used in this form. So in this case, it's gone after the verb, so you cannot use we, you have to change it into us. Okay, and now it makes sense. Video games are played by us. Second, so the first special case is when you have the subject is a subject pronoun. Okay, you need to change its form when you make it into the passive voice. The second is a similar special case. Your behavior has disappointed me. Has disappointed is the verb. What has disappointed? Behavior. Subject. Who is disappointed by the behavior? Me. Okay, so that is the object. Now when you interchange, put the subject last, your behavior, and put the object to the front, me. Now when you take me to the start, it's the same thing but in reverse. Okay, you cannot have me starting a sentence because it's coming before the verb now, so you change it into I. Here it is after the verb, so it's in the object form. Okay, now you're taking it to the start of the sentence, so you take it into the subject. Now work on the verb, that's normal. Has disappointed. What is the verb? To disappoint. What is the tense? Has disappointed. Tells you present perfect, right? So what does the rule tell you? Put to be in the present perfect. I have been, and then you put the participle of the verb. Participle of to disappoint, disappointed. Put by before the subject. I have been disappointed by your behavior. Be systematic, okay? You won't have any problems. So the second special case is when you have an object pronoun, okay? When you're making it into the passive sentence, when you take that object to the front, it will move into the subject pronoun. Okay, this is common sense, the first two rules. Now, the third special case, he will clean the house before the guests arrive. Will clean is the verb, he is the subject. What is being cleaned? The house. So that's the object. Now what happens is you have so much extra information before the guests arrive. This is not part of the subject verb object, but it is still a part of the sentence. So what do? You keep it as it is in the change of voice. So you will keep this part of the sentence as it is. You will only change the subject verb object. You change it into object verb subject. The rest, whatever is there, you keep it as it is. Okay. So now we proceed as normal. Put the object in front, the house. When you put he at the end, it will become him. The same way we became us. Okay. He has to become him. Okay. Because you're going to get a by here. By he is not correct. By him. Okay. Now change the verb. You have will clean. The verb is to clean. What is the tense of this? Will tells you future simple. Okay, you have to put to be in this tense. Will be, and you need to put the participle of the verb. To clean, participle is cleaned, and therefore you get the house will be cleaned by him before the guests arrive. Okay, and the last special case is someone was ringing the doorbell. Was ringing is the verb. Who is doing the action? Someone. Subject. What is receiving the action? What is receiving the ringing? The doorbell. So that becomes the object. Now, in this case, you'll get the object to the start as the doorbell. Now, what happens in this case? Someone is ringing the doorbell. So you don't know who is ringing the doorbell, or you don't. It's not important who's ringing the doorbell. What is important is that the doorbell is rung. Someone has come to the door. Okay. Who is ringing the doorbell? That's not really important. So, would it really make sense to say by someone at the end of the sentence? No, because we don't know who. So, saying by someone becomes redundant, is useless at the end of the sentence. So, we just avoid it. This is the case of the passive sentence without a subject. Okay, where you don't know who's done the action, or it's not important who's done the action. The action is more important. So, you just omit the subject in the passive sentence. And of course, you don't use the word by as well. You change the verb normally. Was ringing. The verb is to ring, right? The tense is was tells you past, ing tells you continuous. So you put to be in this tense, to be in the past continuous, was being, and you put the participle of the verb. The participle of the verb to ring is rung, and that's it. Okay, so whenever you have subjects like someone or one, okay, or the subject doesn't really matter to the sentence, that the object is more important, you just omit it from the passive voice. Okay, I hope you understood the change from active to passive. Watch this video again if need be, because the passive to active is exactly the opposite, and that's what I'm going to be explaining to you in the third part of the series. Thank you.